Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 15, Guardians of the Garden. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how do we know what food we can grow where we live? In this lesson, students combine and analyze weather pattern data from Missouri and another place in the world. Students figure out that each region in the world has a specific climate, which can be described by weather patterns across the year. Some climates are similar to each other and others are very different. Students make connections to the storyline by developing ideas about the relationship between climate and types of food that can be grown in an area. There are several opportunities for ELA, math, and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 15 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 3 to 4 days to complete. Please note that before starting this lesson, seeds need to be planted for future lessons. The materials are in the Lesson 1 bag inside your kit. If you choose to do the Lesson 5 Extend, you will need to plant at least 10 extra seeds. Seeds will need to be planted in preparation for Lessons 4 and 7. Allow seedlings to grow 7 to 10 days prior to the start of the investigation. To begin the Engage portion of Lesson 1, you'll introduce the anchoring phenomenon for Section 1. Different types of food are grown in different regions of the world. You'll ask students where their families buy fresh fruits and vegetables and about their favorite kinds. You'll tell them that one place we can get food is a local grocery store, but there are other places to purchase food as well, including farmers markets and community-supported agriculture, or CSAs. Students will find the anchoring phenomenon more compelling if they can connect to it personally. If you want to change the anchoring phenomenon for your context, keep the following questions in mind. Is it going to be relevant to my students' lives and/or particularly engaging to them? Is it going to motivate students to want to explain how climate differs around the world, how an area's climate determines the types of food that can be grown, and how solutions can be designed to prevent damage to plants from hazardous weather? You'll then show students the CSA versus grocery store produce of different foods offered at a Troy, Missouri CSA, or community-supported agriculture, during the different seasons. Encourage students to notice the difference between the vegetables and fruit lists for each CSA season. You'll ask students what questions they have and allow them to turn and talk to discuss their observations. As students are sharing their observations, you'll provide them with the sentence stem, "Now I'm wondering about," to model how we can use observations to develop questions. You'll have students record initial questions based on their observations on Post-it notes. The goal is to support students to ask multiple questions related to the phenomenon that we can use science to explain. Once students have their questions, you will guide them in creating categories for their questions on the Driving Question Board, using the steps provided in the Teacher Guide. Once categories are created, guide the class in collapsing them into bigger categories that have closer alignment to the driving questions provided in the unit. Do not answer questions at this time or correct student thinking. They will explore their questions and explain this anchoring phenomenon throughout the unit. For example, if a student says something incorrect, you can say, "How can we figure that out?" You'll tell students that they are going to investigate their questions to understand why people grow different types of food around the world. Here are examples of driving question boards from other K-5 units. They depict the students' questions in categories, some along with a drawn model from the unit. Some driving question boards are simple lists of questions or groups of sticky notes posted on chart paper. Teachers and students can manipulate and move around questions and label categories together. You'll then ask students some questions about fruits they can buy at the store but aren't available in any season from the CSA. You'll let them know they'll soon be investigating this phenomenon. You'll allow students to turn and talk, then share ideas. You'll create a list of student ideas on the board. Listen, in particular, for examples of why we cannot grow oranges or lemons in Missouri. You'll record students' prior knowledge of weather conditions and patterns over time and leave them up to revise in the Explain portion of the lesson. For the Explore portion, you'll divide your students into 8 groups and give each group a copy of the St. Louis, Missouri weather pattern pictographs and also display it on the board. You'll point out how one graph is for precipitation and one is for temperature. This is a good time to post the temperature and precipitation vocabulary cards. You'll then provide each group with a set of weather graphs for another location on Earth. Students will use the graphs to answer the questions for their location in the Comparing Weather Patterns student journal pages. For the Explain portion, you'll bring the class together and lead a discussion about the students' observations and learning from the activity. Use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how do we know what food we can grow where we live? The goal of this class discussion is to have students share analysis of the data on the weather patterns in Missouri and how they compare to the other locations. During the discussion, you will fill out the Lesson 1 summary chart to keep track of the class's ideas. You'll fill in the first 2 rows of the summary chart during the Explain and complete the chart during the Elaborate. From the discussion, students should understand that they can know what foods to grow by understanding the temperatures and precipitation patterns in an area. This is a good opportunity to post the climate vocabulary card. For the Elaborate portion, you'll show students the orange tree damage chart and have them look at the chart while referencing their St. Louis Climograph. You'll ask some questions, and by the end of the discussion, students should know that food can best be grown by understanding the temperature and precipitation patterns in a particular area. You'll record this learning in the last row of the summary chart. For the Evaluate portion, you'll have students answer the Quick Check on the Climate Quick Check student journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. Ask, what did we learn about how we know what foods we can grow where we live? And what new questions do you have? By the end of this lesson, students will have combined information about weather patterns in various regions to learn that climates exist and can be similar or different. In Lesson 2, students will apply climate patterns to determine if certain plants can grow in Missouri or not. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.